to Shelf Help, a channel dedicated to talking into the void about whatever book I happen to be reading. I'm your host, the reader. The following review will contain spoilers. Do you have a sibling? Do you ever fight with them? Have those fights ever escalated to encompass the fate of nations? Who among us hasn't had a little childhood disagreement get way out of hand? Okay, it's not quite that simple. Sonia Portinari. These names are Russians, so I'm going to mess them up, but I'll do my best. Apologies ahead of time. Sonia is the last ranger of Marzanna, the Izmoraz, goddess of winter and death. She was trained in secret because the Orium Empire invaded and took over. All the rangers were killed for their role in leading the peasant uprising. She also happens to be the daughter of a famous Orium general and an Izmoraz noblewoman. She spends her days roaming the wilderness of Izmoraz, helping the villagers and fighting Empire soldiers. The war with the Orium Empire left the lower class of Izmoraz in dire straits. The fighting left villages in shambles, and they have to give annual tithes to both the Izmoraz nobility and the Empire. They have next to nothing at this point, not even enough to rebuild, and barely scrape by. Sonia does what she can to help, but she's only one person. Meanwhile, her little brother Sebastian grew up with a very different perspective. He has elemental magic, a rare gift. His father shelters him, keeping him at home and restricting his use of magic. His mother dotes on him and calls him a genius. It's been years since he's been off their rural farm. I'm not even sure he has any real friends. Keep in mind that his father is an empire general and his mother is a noblewoman. Rural doesn't mean poor. They have a large house, plenty of land, and they don't pay either tithe. Privileged comes to mind. The first time we see Sebastian, his family, minus his sister, are sitting down to the dinner table when the Orium military breaks in, kills his father, and gives him the option of joining up. The commander takes him immediately under wing, and Sebastian finds having a father figure who encourages his magic for a change very agreeable. While everyone here falls into shades of gray morality, Commander Viatro is the closest person to a villain. He has his reasons for what he's doing, but they're all self-serving. And his idea of military applications is skewed exclusively towards destructive magic. At some point, Sonia says her brother could defrost a field and grow crops in half the time. Sebastian's first large feat of magic is to build an ice bridge across a river. Building bridges, literally and figuratively, is a huge part of what makes an effective military. The guns and bombs may make the headlines, but any military that storms in with guns blazing and nothing but fear and violence to offer the population is going to find themselves quickly stonewalled. People aren't interested in helping an occupying force. You attract more flies with honey than vinegar and all that. With his power, Sebastian could vastly improve the lives of the lower class, and do so in the name of the Empire. But the commander, and at this point the Empire in general, seems to have no real interest in Izmoraz beyond just having it. Serving there is considered a punishment by the Orium officers. Still, Sebastian finds the military agreeable to him. He dreams of being like his father, and now he has powerful men telling him how wonderful he is. There is a reason military recruiters show up at high school. Senior year is a slow, creeping existential terror. It goes from, just one more year and I'll be on my own, to, oh sweet mother of God, in a few months I'm going to be on my own. It's a lot. By this point you've probably had a job, and some simple math tells you that the 2-bedroom apartment you want is going to require 3 roommates just to break even. You're probably wondering if you should go to college. Can you afford it? Get a loan? Financial aid? Can your parents help? Which college? Maybe go somewhere cheaper to get the basics. Maybe not this year, but take the SATs and ACTs so you have those. Need to make time to study. Also get that community service in to look good on college applications. Not to mention all the social obligations and keeping up your grades. And the realization that the institution that has dictated your life and schedule since you were 6 years old is very soon going to go away. And then here comes the military recruiter. Young, fit, attractive, in a nice, crisp uniform, offering you an alternative. Structured living, reliable food and shelter, money for the future, college scholarships, skills training. See the world! Combine that with the fact that the human brain isn't fully developed until age 25, and teenage hormones having a habit of telling us we are immortal, and we skim over the fact that we might die in a foreign country, be ordered to do morally questionable things, or even end up with lifelong physical and/or emotional trauma to line the pockets of rich old men. This is the exact tactic the commander uses. Applauding Sebastian's worst instincts and encouraging him to be even harsher. Sebastian, while he does have his head up his ass, really is the victim in all this. Not one person in this whole story, aside from his sister, is straight with this kid. His father never explains why he doesn't want him to join the military. His mother puts him on a pedestal and calls him a genius. The commander wants him only for his destructive power and to get back into the Empress's good graces. Even his betrothed is interested in him for his influence. She tells him what he wants to hear and then blames him for not having his own moral compass. Then there's his sister, full of swagger, even with the best intentions to tell him he's not the best thing since sliced bread, and maybe wanton slaughter of impoverished villagers isn't a good thing. Being told what he doesn't want to hear from a sister he never got along with, and conditioned to not trust, doesn't go well. That said, Sonia does believe her brother can be saved, even if he doesn't want to be. She goes out to meet him on her own, and what she gives up to gain the ability to counter his magic? Ugh. That's love. Now, Sonia isn't innocent in all this. She has been slaughtering low-ranking soldiers for following orders. How many of those were her own people just trying to get by? As one of the village elders points out, Empire money still buys food. When she fails to draw the Empire into her one-woman war, she conspires with their enemy to bring an army of the dead across the tundra in winter. With no good reason to believe they will keep their bargain, because again, she's just one person. So when these two call each other arrogant and naive, neither is wrong. These two clash not because they're different, but because they are very much the same. One aspect of the story I love is the romance, because it's not a fucking love triangle. Just so happy to not be reading yet another Who Will She Choose angstfest. Heteronormative monogamy is not the only option. This one gives us a three-way polyamorous relationship between Sonia, a potion maker named George from Rayas, and an Unan warrior named Blaine. George is an academic, dedicating his life to research and study. He's from a small country in the south of the continent and follows strict religious beliefs about marriage and sex. He meets Sonia when she's injured and uses his knowledge to bring her back to health. They are opposites and instant friends, and he's soon following her on her crusade. Blaine is a big warrior with a big swagger and a big sword. He barely speaks the same language as Sonia and mocks her use of a tiny knife. She kicks his ass, and they become battle buddies. He helps her get in contact with the Unan warlord and helps serve as a translator. And When Blaine and Sonia are dancing and George is sitting on the sidelines, it's Blaine who switches partners, taking George dancing while Sonia drinks with the warlord. Priceless. They share sleeping space, and Sonia and Blaine invite George to join their Friends with Benefits party even though they knows he has religious hang-ups and will refuse. But they invite him anyway, and that's the point. There's no rivalry, no nonsense about who is best for her. The boys are even into each other. So many stories need more of this. I'm gonna put this on my top shelf. It's fun. There's adventurous and polyamorous romance. The two main characters are complex individuals who've taken the same information and come to very different conclusions. Almost without exception, all the characters are morally gray. They're doing what they think is right. While there is a villain, he's really just out for himself. He's not twisting his mustache or anything. And, as an older sister, I can relate. I've tried to advise my brother and probably come off as a condescending bitch. And probably made the situation worse on more than one occasion. Yeah, Sebastian's an idiot, but it's not entirely his fault. Thank you for your time. I know everyone's mileage will vary, so feel free to leave your thoughts.